It's in the Chamadina, the Rebbe's mother-in-law. When she saw the 3 times a week Yechidus, she said, "What are you doing to my son-in-law? You guys are rotzchim. You guys are murderers." She says, "My father-in-law said, the Rebbe Rashab, that Yechidus the Rebbe gives till the last drop of blood. What do you want from him? You want him right away to start 3 times a week like this?" And this is what she was screaming then at them. That's one, I saw it in one story. This is the occasion when she said that the Rebbe Rashab says, in Yechidus, a Rebbe gives in a private audience till the last drop of blood. The whole energy, it's like the whole investment that Rabbeim did in Yechidus. It was very exertive. I mean, the previous Rebbe, the year he was nostalgic, he said to the Rebbe that Yechidus takes out the energy. He says, but it's not obvious. People don't realize it. Okay, so this has been a gear getting back to the union of Moshel. Then when somebody is on a higher level, he has to find a channel, which this is a Moshel, a foreign, alien garment, through which to relay the deep concept. Become a Medrash Chazal, as it's mentioned in many anthologies. Moshel Melech Malchi Amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Memela Basar Adam. That this is also an example. Why is it that in order to understand the Eibishter, we bring a mashal from a physical king? The reason is because a physical king and chain reaction stems from the king Lamaila. The royalty in this physical world is like the royalty in the higher world, in heaven. So therefore one comes from another. So in order to understand, the royalty here comes from there, from higher. And that's why here Lamata is a mashal, a levush, a garment, a channel through which to understand the higher levels.
A good king, a bad king, any king.
It says a king.
Saddam Hussein.
We're talking about a king, not talking about a psach. Talking about psach basav adam, on a mensch. But generally, it's the anhog of malchus. We're not talking about the character of the person. We're talking about the nature, the character of the king. The malchus dikatnuas. And actually, everything in this physical world is an example from above, is a mashal from above. As we mentioned in the previous year ones, that the Rebbe Marash says that in the famous Maimer Micha Mecha, that this world, everything here is basically mashalim to understand the higher worlds. It's a mashal, it's a parable to understand the higher worlds. And the Rebbe Marash gives an example. The example is from a rooster. He says, in this physical world, it is a rooster that wakes up a person. But this rooster in this physical world is a reflection of one that wakes up the neshamas in Elam Abriya. And that rooster is called Malach Gavriel. He's a Malach, but he's a Gever, also Gever. Same way like we see by a rooster, we say Gever. Same thing here, we say Gavriel. So the sheresh of the rooster in this physical world comes from the same features. Same nekuda. He wakes up in the Shamas and Gan Eden. So the Rebbe Marash says a very interesting thing. He says if the rooster would see Malach Gavriel, he would lose himself. It's 2 worlds higher than, not only 2 worlds, 2,000 levels higher than him. According to Inyan, that every world is 1,000 levels, 2,000 levels higher than Shalei Be'erech. He is physical and the Malach is spiritual. But this is how it goes one from another. And this is how the Rebbe Marash explains in this Maimer, which this Hasidic discourse was said in 1827 and in 1867, 1869, explaining Achdus Hashem, the oneness of Hashem. So he explains that it's not like we have a new chain of creation here, it's all one reflection from above.
But the animals do see the spirits.
Yeah, but you had the Chamer of Bilam, it was Vayigal Hashem. He had to open up the eyes. It wasn't Chamer. He stood in his way. He saw the Chamer. He saw the Malach. Akol Panim, the point is that everything here Lamata is a mashal, a parable for something in a higher world. How do we understand it? So Chassidus explains the spiritual features of the objects in this physical world which reflect the higher worlds in everything. The same way that the Rebbe Rashab said that Chacham speaks about it in different places. In the Maimarim, In the Hasidic discourses of the Rebbe Marash, he speaks about it more directly. But actually the Shalom mentions it. Shalom mentions, HaTeira midaberes b'olyenim u'miramezes b'tachtenim. The Torah relates to the higher worlds. What we see, the different expressions, is as it is hinted and alluded to through the channel of the lower worlds. So this is basically what the inyan of Torah is. We're all the inyanim. These are inyanim of elikus, getlichkeit, godliness. So what was the reason that Shlomo Melech was able to do such a thing? Is v'hu mishum shahaya beibina yisera. He had an extra intuition, so therefore he was able to do that. Now that as the same thing is also been again to us. In order there should be able to be a descent from the seichel anelam, from a concealed seichel that's concealed from everything. That it should be revealed to this physical world, which means coming from chochmah and higher, till the level of malchus, going through all the attributes. That he should be considered a father, relating to the outside, to the other nations. So he needed the union of Eishei, which the Eishei, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tereir, that this is the Sherish of Eishei, comes from a higher Sherish yet than Chochmah. Yud Kei, Yud is Chochmah. The first letter of Yud Kei Vav Kei is Chachma. The second letter, Hey, is the union of Bina. So the Bina, Gilui Atik is Bebina. Where do you have the revelation of the attribute of Keser, of Atik, is in Bina. So what is the reason for that? Because where does a person have the pleasure of understanding something? So that's in Bina. When he finally analyzes it and is able to understand it. That's where he has a special pleasure, because there is no joy as joy of solving doubts.
But doesn't it say also that something on a lower level really comes from always a higher one?
Bina.
Anyway, something that's on a lower level comes from a higher one, really.
Okay, this is in Bechlal, we speak about it when we speak about the collapse of Elam Ateo,
Right,
the world of chaos, right. But here, when we say, in general, something that's a Mekabel is from higher. Right. The same like Malchus, the attribute of royalty is higher. The same thing is Bina, is from a higher level of Chachma. It's the union of Archava. And this is where Giluyatik, the revelation of Keser, is Dafkim Bina, because this is where the understanding is.
This relates to the nations?
So he says, so the word is that in order that Avraham Avinu should have this Keach, that it should come down to all the way, so he needed the union of Hey, which Hey is also connected with nations. Av Hamoin Goyim Nesaticha. That's why he's not called Avram only, but Avraham Ki Av Hamein Goyim. It seems like in the Hey Mem is Av Hamein Goyim, that it's also the Hamein Goyim that also takes in other nations. Because Avram is for himself. But Avram is a father, a beginning, which is Rom, which is completely removed beyond other levels.
So putting two and two together, you're saying that the extra being that came through the hay gave him an ability to relate to the nations.
Right, to come to draw down to the level that other nations could relate to it.
It said in Rashi that he also made Gerim where he was.
Right.
So he was connecting to the...
Right, this is the union of Gerim, right, because this is what he was partially descending and bringing the Gerim closer to him. Although it's mentioned in Mistami Chazal also, but it's mentioned in Chassidus that from all these converts, I think from all these converts, nobody was left after. There was no Reisham left from them. There was no hemshah, no continuity. Because Pashtus,
So he didn't have the hay, like you said. He was
or either because it was before Matan Torah, or whatever it was. Together with that, the Gemara says in Bava Basra that Rabbi Noah was one that designed the Moras HaMachpelah. He once guided, took people through a tour in Moras HaMachpelah.
Who did?
Rabbi Noah, the Tana, the sage, Benoah, Beis Nun Aleph Hey. In the Gemara in Amechres Hasvina. And he took them through. And then he showed them Avram, and he showed them Sarah, and he showed them Yitzchak, and he showed them Rivka. He showed them the whole thing. And he showed each one, and he discusses each one. And from this Gemara is used as a basis, as a reference from a source for many different things that are quoted in Negeh to Yankev and Odom Marish, and how they're both similar. Different things. The Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya and Igeres HaKedesh. So there's one thing over there that it says that